think the approach is about staying open-minded and listening to the customer, asking the right questions instead of being quick to say no, or we don't work that way, or it's not possible. You're kind of like at the doorstep of opportunity. You could handle it a couple different ways, and you don't know what's on the other side of that door. So instead of shutting it down, I just try to listen, to ask questions. What does your ideal solution look like? Remove some of the barriers, approaching it with an open mind and really listening helps unlock a lot of opportunities.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast, where we explore the world of entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to start, grow, and scale a successful business. We're on a mission to share our experiences, failures, insights, and advice with others. Whether you're just starting out in your entrepreneurial journey or you're looking to take your business to the next level, tune in and join the conversation about what it takes to succeed in the world of business.
We going full throttle.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you. As always, we appreciate likes, shares, and subscriptions. Always love it. But if you get value from this conversation with Heather, my preference is that you would share it with one person. So if there's someone that you're thinking about that says, oh, they might actually find this really interesting, or they would benefit from this with their business, I just ask that if you resonate with Heather's story and you think of someone else that could resonate with it, that you would share it with that person, because my goal is to get one person value. If one person gets value from this is worth it, and it's worth the time investment and the effort we put into it. So thank you so much for listening. Today I have on my show, I'm super excited. She and I have connected, and I've been following her journey for a little bit. She started as an eBay arbitrage business at 11 years old, right? And then scaled all the way through retail, and then going now for the last 12 years of founding and scaling Shoppable, which is an incredible business that I can't wait to kind of talk a lot about. I have Heather Udo on my podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you, Heather. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Grant. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah, so tell me, it sounds like I'm just guessing, based on your experience for the last 10, 15, 20 years, like, has entrepreneurship always been something that you're like, you just had to do it? Have you always been that side hustle person?
I have since a young age. I think for me, it's always been about a combination of building something from nothing, and related to that, as someone who, in some respects likes to work. I would say, I think that's fair to say, that it's nice, like when you work hard and you put everything into something as an entrepreneur, it's so nice to see it come to fruition. And it's so nice to kind of have that autonomy. And that's something that for whatever reason, I've just loved from an early age.
Love it. So talk to me about like what led you to Shoppable. It sounds like, you worked in marketing media for a little bit, you worked in retail for a little bit. You had such a wealth of experience on so many different things. What did you think, like, this is my specialty and I really want to hone in on this? Interesting.
I think so with Shoppable, it really came out of a personal frustration more than I felt like my expertise. And in all honesty, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome at the beginning because I felt like I wasn't deep enough of the industry. And I spent a long time, researching and kind of looking into why hadn't this been done before, and what am I missing, that type of thing. But really, I started it because of my own experience as a consumer, and one that you've probably had, and everyone listening right now has probably had too, which is, we discover great products all around us, and there's that time where you were watching something on your TV, or you were on a blogger site, or you were on Pinterest, or any number of great content sites, and you found something that you wanted to buy and you couldn't. And you probably either gave up and then just didn't buy it, and meaning you didn't end up purchasing that product that you wanted, and the seller didn't end up selling to you, which they would have wanted to happen, or you went to Google, tried to describe the product, which is an experience I did repeatedly, tried to figure out what brand maybe sells, that throw blanket or whatever the product was at the time. And sometimes 45 minutes later, I still can't figure out where I can buy the product. And, as a consumer, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like these retailers don't want my money. And it was this aha moment where I'm like, okay, of course they do. But if the buyers and sellers are not meeting, and I'm like, I can't be the only person having this problem. So if the buyer and sellers aren't finding each other, and whoever's creating this great content isn't able to monetize it, then something's broken. And that really led me down the rabbit hole of, does something exist? And ultimately, in creating Shoppable, through the means of essentially, we partner with all the major retailers from Walmart, Walgreens, Best Buy, Sephora, Saks Fifth Avenue, et cetera. We partner with all the major retailers and created this universal product catalog of 450 million SKUs. And then we created this universal checkout that we license and embed into platforms, into ads, into videos, into content, you name it, we make it shoppable.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So did you start with that big of a vision to make that process seamless? I struggle with people that when they're like, I'm going to create a software, I'm going to create a SaaS that wants to achieve something so dramatically big. Right? Sometimes it's really hard to launch that. Sometimes it's really hard to get some traction. So what was that initial phase of you saying I want to solve this problem? Because there's so many steps in between.
Oh yeah.
Wanting to solve that problem and getting to where you at.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, there are so many, I would say kind of, evolutions along the way. I won't say pivots, but it's around evolutions, because from the beginning, everything has been about creating this universal shopping experience and being able to, to be agnostic to all of the retailers, and I'm sure we'll talk about Amazon in a minute, but I think that's one of the key things is that we're agnostic. We don't hold any inventory. We don't push, feel the need to push our own products because we don't have our own products. We essentially, at the very beginning, we started Shoppable as kind of the first proof of concept was still around this universal checkout, this universal product catalog, right? So we partner with all of the major retailers. We started with the biggest ones in the US, from, a Walmart, Sephora, Ulta, Saks Fifth Avenue, Macy's, Best Buy. I'm forgetting a bunch, but we started with the biggest retailers, and then created this large product catalog, and then this universal shopping experience through our multi-retailer checkout. So the difference between where we are today and where we first started was one of the differences, I would say, was the first proof of concept was a destination site. So you could purchase, some products from Saks Fifth Avenue, and you could also purchase some products from, OscarDeLaRenta.com, but within a single checkout. So you could buy the handbag at the same time as you bought the dress from another retailer, right? And it was streamlined into one checkout. So that's where we started the initial proof of concept. And then I got a lot of advice early on saying you have to go and talk to your customers. And we had this really kind of light proof of concept, and everything else that I was kind of envisioning was in a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And I luckily for me was able to get in with a lot of the largest publishing houses here in New York and be able to speak to them, essentially pitch them on what I was building, get their feedback while we were still building a lot of it. And they helped really craft how we got from that to where we are today. Because very early on, I had an editor-in-chief of one of these big magazines sitting in a room with about 20 other staff and me, and they said, we love this, but we want to embed it on our website. And at the time, I was thinking about things. This is very, very early days, but I was thinking about having all of these publishers redirect to one location with one checkout instead of to, all the different retailers and brands and advertisers that they work with. And anyway, that conversation was so pivotal because, she said, we love this, and we'll use it, we'll send you traffic, but only for so long, because ultimately we want to check out on our site, and we want the ability to not have to send our traffic away from our site, because that's, that's such an important part of their business. So essentially what I'm hearing is we had a temporary solution, but it wasn't going to be a long-term, we wouldn't have a long-term product market fit. So I went around, kind of dug into that more. And then I gave myself 30 days to decide if I wanted to go from this destination approach, basically to B2B SaaS, which was not exactly how we were setting things up at the beginning. And I realized, wait a minute, that's an even bigger business. That has so much more potential. And that's really where I see e-commerce going anyway. So it's like, how do we, do we continue as is, but we have a solve for short term? Maybe it was definitely would have been easier if we stuck in that lane, or do we expand? Do we kind of transition from a destination to SaaS? And that's what we ultimately did.
I love that. So the last 12 years, I'm sure it's taken so many different forms. Or are you saying that, like, basically from what you had at the beginning, you've kind of continued on the trajectory with that long-term partnership mindset because you're creating a product that fits something long-term? Have you seen evolutions over the last decade for what the company does? Or do you feel like, just because like social media changes so much, companies change so much, tech changes so much, like what things do you feel like, okay, this has always been true for us and how we help people?
Yeah, so it has its evolutions, and I would say it's more about kind of additions, product features, and how we're bringing it to the market. But ultimately, what remains the same is that we have this retailer agnostic product catalog, and we have our multi-retailer checkout that can make anything shoppable and convert to purchases anywhere. That's always been the same since that point in time. But the solutions that we offer has evolved, and again, I think a lot of that is about listening to the market, getting feedback from our customers, from our prospects. And, early on, again, this is probably 11 years or so ago, we had one solution. So, and customers also wanted things to be hyper manual because they wanted absolute control over every single product that would show up, where it would show up. They wanted to replace the images. They wanted to use their own, they wanted so much control over every detail. And obviously that can't last forever. So I would say that's one thing that's changed. And then another was I spoke at a L2 event, which I think was acquired as Gardner now. But I spoke on stage at an L2 digital event in New York. And afterwards, and this is one of the great things about being in New York, afterwards, one of the largest CPG companies in the world, someone came up to me and said, "Can your technology be used by consumer packaged good companies?" And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? You have a website? Yes. Do you want to add shopping capabilities to it? Yes. Great. And this brand or CPG conglomerate, they sell in Walmart and Walgreens and CVS and Rite Aid and all these other partners of ours. And that conversation, led to just a huge area of opportunity for shoppable.
Yeah.
And being able to make these brand websites shoppable. And they really helped us create a product that we now call D2C Lite, or direct-to-consumer Lite, which takes a site that is not a direct-to-consumer experience and makes it look like one, but all of the products are curated from our catalog. In a brand's case, they only curate their own branded products, but all of the fulfillment goes through the preferred retail partners through Shoppable's checkout. So they really helped us craft that product and then build it. And we built it out in a scalable way for other CPGs.
Yeah, talk to me. I want to dive in on that, right? Because I think you took advantage of a golden opportunity, right? So like you're networking at the appropriate events. You find yourself in the right situation at an inflection point, I'm sure, where you're saying, how do we go from a very specialized product per customer to this is what we're going to be able to do for a bunch of customers, which allows us to create kind of an overarching product that a lot of people will want. That initial relationship, right? Do you feel like that, like, what was your reaction to being like, yeah, this is exactly what we need to get to where we want to go? Like, how did you approach that encounter to make it so that like you were actually able to take advantage of that opportunity? Because a lot of times people come across those opportunities and they don't take advantage, or they come across those opportunities and they blow it. So what was the reason that you think like, okay, it really worked out for us and it's led to a lot of the growth that you've been able to have?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the approach is about staying open-minded and making sure and listening to the customer, asking the right questions instead of being quick to say no, or we don't work that way, or it's not possible. When I'm having those types of conversations and it feels, you're kind of like at the doorstep of opportunity, you could handle it a couple different ways, and you don't know what's on the other side of that door. So instead of shutting it down or taking over and leading the conversation, which I think as entrepreneurs, we have to be careful with, because we get so excited. Someone's interested in your technology, someone's interested in your product. So I just try to listen, to ask questions, and to say, what does your ideal solution look like? What are you, if you could have any type of experience, what does that look like? And then it removes some of the barriers and the constraints from how someone will think about something. If I told them exactly what we do or can't do up front, then they're going to be already in a box and be thinking within that box, right? So I think that's really how I try to approach it is from that perspective, and that kind of approaching it with an open mind and really listening helps unlock a lot of opportunities.
That's a classic sales approach as well, where it's basically if you are talking too much, you're not going to make the sale. But if you listen and if you listen and you ask questions, usually because people in general, they like talking. So I love that. It's a good highlight. Do you think something I've found with people in the tech space, in the SaaS space, developers are frequently saying they're building tools all the time. Building tools that they are very passionate about and they think solve a lot of issues, but they neglect to build something and be able to market it and present it in the right places, and they're not thinking about how I can bridge the gap between other things that are working. So can you speak to, like, if there's people that are listening to this that are thinking about how can I be that middleman between these tools, between these companies that need that bridge? How should someone approach building something that could be a solution that can scale enterprise, but you need to start by solving something simple?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it depends on a lot of different things, but I would say one of the most important things is you have to figure out if what you want to do is a product or a feature. And that's something that a serial entrepreneur did a whole talk on many, many years ago when I was at the last startup before I started Shoppable. And, if you think about, let's say, like, I'll use an example that everyone's probably heard of, Twitter, aka X now. But, when Twitter was in its earlier days, there was also another company that was like, okay, I want to create a new company that allows people to share photos on Twitter. Well, ultimately, that's just a feature that Twitter could release, and then your whole company in quotes, can just go away. Maybe they'll buy it, but maybe it just completely goes away. And if they don't buy it, what else are you doing with it? So I think one of the most important places to start is just figuring out, is your idea a business? Is it something that can be a product? Is it something that's a feature, or is it a full business? And and again, thinking about the product, is it something that is solving a need now, and will that need be there longer term? too. So kind of
Yeah.
going back to how I was having those conversations, and I realized that the initial way I was thinking about it was solving a short-term need, but that need was probably not going to be there in a few years. So
Yeah.
That's how I would
Yeah.
approach it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so tell me about this. You're solving this incredible problem. I see so much opportunity for you to scale. What is your vision for Shoppable in the future? Like, what do you envision doing? Like, are there particular partnerships you're excited to kind of pursue? Like, do you have a revenue goal in mind? Do you have like we'd really like to get into this platform or this niche? Like, what do you envision for the next steps?
Yeah. So the vision is essentially creating a shoppable layer across all forms of digital media. So that's everything from your TV to anything you can access on your phone, on your laptop, any smart devices that you have. Ultimately, it's being able to, with one click or one command, depending upon where you're interacting with it, be able to purchase a product. But even before that, you'll be able to see what retailers have it in stock, all of them. Here are all the retailers that have it in stock. Here's who has the best price. Here's who can ship it to you the fastest. Here's who can get it to you today if you need same-day delivery. And here's something that looks like it. Maybe it's a custom product that doesn't exist anymore, but here's something that looks like it. Someone could make it. But all of those important features will should automatically happen in the consumer experience. And there's so many hoops that consumers are jumping through, like trying to search for a promo code and track it down, and then price check and price comparison from site to site. Let's just make that a lot easier. Let's save the consumer time, bring the cart to them, make all of that happen automatically. So, that's the direction that we're going. But I would say in the short term, kind of more immediate things that we're doing, we just announced our release of Shoppable's Checkout API, which essentially it means that any company or platform can license Shoppable's multi-retailer checkout, and they can build it directly into their whole platform and make it available to anything and anyone on their platform automatically at scale.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're so excited about it because normally, in the past, Shoppable has been creating these experiences on a one-to-one implementation. So a single license, a single shop that we're setting up, which is great, but this takes that concept and we do one API integration, and then we have several ad tech partners that are implementing it into their platforms to make all of their ad shoppable. And we have shoppable TV partners that are that have some of them that have launched Shoppable's technology within their platform, so all of their CTV commercials can be made shoppable and consumers can shop them. So
that is really cool.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff that we're really doing in the short term, and it's very, very exciting.
Well, let's dive into that, because I see so many things that are weaving together where we're trying to blend content with product in new ways. That's UGC creators, TikTok. It seems like every platform, Meta included, TikTok included, I think Amazon included. Many people are trying to say, okay, how can we display a video that shows a product and also allow people to buy that same product within that video, right? And that's, I mean, and I think Meta just released a new digital glasses where essentially you'll be able to look around into whatever that store is and be able to look at the products they're visibly displaying and look at their price points, look at whatever's happening. So in a world that is going to connect products with just everyday media, like how is Shoppable going to be that bridge, or do you think that there's going to be a bunch of competitors that are going to try to create their own thing and you just have an advantage by being there first?
I would say both, but shoppable, we certainly have multiple advantages by being first, and I would say the number one is we have patents on our technology, so we're protected on that. We have 4 patents on what we do. So from that perspective, other companies are prevented from being able to do what we do, and so that's a huge advantage. Obviously, anyone else trying, there's legal stuff that I'm not aware, I can't get into, but you know what I mean. So there's that aspect. But I think, one of the other advantages is that it, and also in some respects it was a disadvantage. But by being first, we really had to educate the market and all parts of the market, especially the retailers, because as I first started reaching out to retailers and pitching them on this concept, I got so many email replies saying, we don't operate that way. That's not how our commerce works. I'm like, I know, it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
But let me tell you why it should. And in any way, so it certainly took time, but I also, built those relationships with those companies. And again, I started with the biggest ones, which are the hardest to get, but it helped us get the breadth of products. And that's why we have 450 million products today. Whereas had we started with each of these, like the smaller D2C brands, we might have more partners as a whole, but less inventory and less recognizable retailers and brands that we'd be working with. So I think those things kind of give us an advantage. But we'd be so happy and lucky to be able to fulfill that need that you're speaking to, for sure.
I love it. Well, yeah. So I also want to talk. I want to talk about you and your experience a little bit. So you're talking about these negotiations with such large companies, and you've built something that's so incredible. Like, what is? Do you find yourself extremely confident in those conversations? Does that come naturally to you to pitch, to sell on that front, or do you feel like that's something you've had to learn along the way? I think a lot of people would hesitate. They'd feel some level of imposter syndrome. They'd feel some level of fear and trepidation approaching such large companies and saying, "Here, can I give you the solution?" It's just selling to enterprises is a completely different thing.
That's true. Yeah. I think it's something you get used to now. Now I'm certainly used to it. We work with many of the, I would say, Fortune 500, even Fortune 50, Fortune 100 advertisers within the space. So I'm used to speaking to them at this point, but I still, will occasionally get off a call and be like, wow, that's cool. That's XYZ brand. Or a couple weeks ago, I was speaking to, I can't name names, but a very large advertiser. And on the call, this is someone who was I think he was the head of innovation or VP of innovation. And on the call, he was like, this is the coolest technology that I have ever seen for non-D2C brands like theirs. And he's like, but you don't want to hear that from us. He's like, you know that already. You don't want to hear that. And I was like, please, I do. You're exactly the person I want to hear this from. Please continue. And might I quote you tomorrow?
Yeah. I love that. So what you has that confidence? I guess you come off as so humble. That's just your personality. You come off as so approachable and humble. I feel like there's so many people that would be in your position would be extremely arrogant. And I'm not just trying to butter you up, but what leads to your tone where you feel like because you have all the cards. You have a product that everybody wants. You're solving an issue that is going to be extremely relevant in the next 5 years. And I think any venture capitalist or any startup person is like, how do you do what you do? Because you've gotten to the point that a lot of them want to get to. So how is your tone so humble with all that you've accomplished?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that that's how I come off. Because I think it's important. I think that we all want to work with people that we like and that we enjoy working with, right? So, I mean, even at Shoppable, we, for like team members and stuff, we have I don't know if can I curse on here?
Yeah, go for it.
We have a no asshole policy, right? So, so no one that, you can't have a head that's too big to fit in the room, because you're just not going to succeed within our culture. And I think that's important within the company, but it's also important externally too. We, in fostering these relationships and people that we want to work with. And, we do have a lot of customers that, they're big brands and companies, but there's people within those brands and companies. And then we try to, keep and maintain those relationships within the companies too. But yeah, I think it's part of, I would say it's part of who I am too. So I live in New York now, but I grew up in Wisconsin. So I like to say I'm Midwest 9th.
That makes sense.
But I'm New York.
Yeah, that checks out. That sounds good. Yeah. So talk to me about, like, you're in an industry where CEOs, it's very aggression. Like, the more aggressive you are, it's almost like the more you hustle, the more, like, it encourages alpha tones and alpha mentalities. How have you been able to, like, have you just been able to beat them just because of you've been product focused? Like, I think a lot of women that probably would listen to this would be like, man, I would love to accomplish this, and I would love to figure out how you've done this, and not come across as an asshole, as you say. Like, how do you bridge that gap? Because I think I haven't come across many females that have been able to do that very well.
That's a good question. I think it's a good question. I think part of it is confidence, and part of it is I think part of it is product, and part of it is I would say is industry knowledge too, which as I said earlier, I didn't feel like I had enough of it at the beginning, but I dove in so deep so that I could get over that and feel confident about where all of the different industries were at when I was starting, that I had, that I understood where the timing was and where things would go. But yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of things, but it's part of it is also practice. And as you said, I've been doing this for 12 years now, and it has certainly gotten easier to have conversations with these really big companies, and also to not be scared by, for lack of a better term, by someone else that's trying to compete within the space. And at the end of the day, we try not to think too much about competitors. We have, well, I probably can't say that, but we have competitors that are looking at us quite a bit. I can say that, because you can tell by what they're doing, following along as best as they can. But yeah, we try not to think too much about them, because at the end of the day, what a competitor does is not within your control, and you have a limited set of time and a limited set of energy every day that you can put into something. So you can put it into thinking about your competitor and their CEO or this guy or whoever, or you can put it into your business and your product and helping your customers and trying to add more value and grow your business. And that's what I try to focus on.
I love that. And I think something that you're touching on, which I think is valuable for anybody to hear. Like, I talk to a lot of people, and I think confidence does a lot. Even if it's blind confidence does a lot, because you can just communicate something boldly. You can toe the line of arrogance, but if you're confident, it'll get you into more rooms. There's another thing that I think works better, which is evidence. And that's what you're preaching to, where it's like, hey, I have 12 years of experience doing this, helping solve this problem, and my product being better has gotten me in all these stores and all these rooms. I wish more people would focus more energy. I guess I feel convicted, because myself included, like, focus more energy on being confident in our evidence rather than the intention of what we want to do. So I want to transition to this. Like, what for you, like, as you accomplish things in your business, what are you going to try to do to accomplish things just as in terms of like balance for your life? Because like, I'm sure things can go in many different directions. Do you have like, are all of your goals mostly business focused now, or are you trying to grow something for your brand and help other people with the experience that you've had?
Great question. No, I mean, I have both personal goals as well as the business goals. But I think, I'd love trying to help other entrepreneurs. And, I love the entrepreneurial community. And, we all have different unique experiences, and we're all on our own journeys and at different points in our journey. But you can always learn from each other. So I also, one of the reasons I love talking to other entrepreneurs too is just learning from them and how I can improve myself, improve my business, improve my leadership styles. But for sure, I want to help others in any way that I can. Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. So yeah, what do you think practically that's going to look like over the next 5 years? Do you think like, are you going to invest more in terms of like your content? Are you going to invest more in terms of like you'll do more presentation stuff and you'll work more closely with people? Like what do you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, I would say I'm investing more, and this is brand new for me, but investing more in content in particular, kind of through my own personal channels too. And that's something that admittedly I will say I'm very uncomfortable with. It's outside of my, normal comfort. I feel like I'm more of an introvert.
Which is so funny. That's so funny because that's what I'm saying. Like you're like, for someone that's accomplished so much to feel like uncomfortable in that is so interesting to me.
Yeah, it's weird it's more weird for me to do a video for social than it is to like go on live TV.
Why is that? Yeah, why is that? Why do you think? What's the difference?
I think because you're kind of talking to yourself, and I think that's, even though you're talking to your audience, to a community. I feel like I'm talking to myself, and for me, and part of it is I want to always be authentic, and I want to come off that way too. And I think when I'm talking at my phone or something and there's not an actual human there, I'm like, do I sound, I think I'm in my head, like, do I sound inauthentic?
Yeah.
Does this sound like condescending? Does it sound this way? Does it sound, any which way? And I think that's my concern with it, that I need to get over it. I'm, putting in the right.
Yeah, it's a limiting belief. Yeah, it's a limiting belief, Heather. We gotta figure that out.
Exactly.
So wait, so let's turn to that for a little bit. Like, so if that's a vision for you, because I think it's a vision for a lot of people that probably listen to this, and there's a lot of business owners that I talk to that struggle with that think that is something that, like, at least they have vision for it, but they are like, how do I get from point A to point B? Who do you have like an idea of like who you want to help? Like if you're doing something for content, if you could say like I would love for this person to follow me.
Yeah.
Like an ICP of follower almost.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably, I would say either, or I should say both, entrepreneurs kind of in their early days. I just really, although I'm, been doing this for 12 years, and maybe that's why, just love the early days of kind of putting together business and how do you get started. And I have a lot of friends that are just starting businesses, and I love answering those questions for them and also helping them like not make some of the early mistakes that I made. So I would say, yeah, entrepreneurs that are early in their business, as well as entrepreneurs that are starting brands within the, that they're starting their own D2C brand, or maybe they're selling through retail, or are launching SaaS businesses, technology, those types of entrepreneurs, I would say.
So on that, if that's the type of entrepreneur that you're looking to help, like what is like, yeah, what's the person, like what do you think you could say to them? Let's talk to them right now. Like what's something that you think that a lot of them, they're looking at you and saying, man, I would love to get in her shoes. I'd love to be able to have those kind of conversations. Like that's their dream. Mm-hmm. Can you give them a tactical solution for how they can probably help their customer right now and how they can focus on their product? Because I think based on everything you've said, like you've just spent so much time focused on that getting to where you're at is a byproduct of it. So from a tactical perspective of like, I want to help entrepreneurs looking to scale a D2C, a B2B company, right? Like there's everyone that's in Y Combinator is trying to do that. Every single one, like every single person that is living in San Francisco and is trying to do that right now. Like what's the nitty gritty of like, this is something that it takes? Like, what have you sacrificed in order to achieve what you've done?
Well, I think it's a big question. I guess there's probably a couple parts to that. I would say, in the early days, you're really sacrificing a lot of your personal life and, and even like unless you're starting out independently wealthy, let me put it that way, you're sacrificing a lot of your kind of comforts and things like that, or you likely should be to be able to do what you need to do to get it off the ground. And even if you are independently wealthy, you should sacrifice your, a lot of your like maybe after work activities and some of your weekend activities and things that you need to do to get super, super focused on your product, on your vision and your business and like where, and the big vision, and then what are the short-term steps that you need to get there, and then having those conversations with prospective partners and customers and getting in front of them early, I would say. But part of that for me in the early days, what I did and what worked for me was, I at the time when I very first started Shoppable, I was still living in San Francisco, and I was living downtown. Had a nice apartment with a view of the Bay Bridge and a little balcony. It was beautiful, but it was not the place for an entrepreneur to get started and to prepare to quit her job. So I ended up moving to the North Bay to reduce my salary, to reduce my rent, to cut it down dramatically so I could start increasing my savings. And I didn't have a TV, I didn't have Netflix, I didn't have, Hulu, I didn't have any streaming content, AKA distractions, because it was really about putting in all of that time, and also I told my closest friends they knew that I was going to be starting a business, and I said, hey, I just want you to know that I probably won't see you guys that much anymore, not forever, just for a short period of time while I'm...
How did they react? How did they react to you saying peace out for a little bit?
Support. They were supportive, and I'm sure they're probably like, well, we'll see, especially in San Francisco, everyone, almost everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, has this idea. Some people follow through and others don't. So who knows what they actually thought. But yeah, I, made those early adjustments to start to prepare for taking that entrepreneur leap in the beginning. But it's, you are making those sacrifices for sure.
Yeah. Well, and so was there a moment for you where you're like, holy shit, I made it? Like, I've put on all this work, and you just look back and you're like, was there a moment that you said like, oh, okay, wow, I could stop here and it'd be awesome?
Yeah. That's so funny. I think the first time that I really felt that way was probably about 2 years into starting the company. I had a very large financial institution, let's say, come to me and was interested in acquiring the business. And when that happened, I was shocked. And shocked that it happened so soon, because I was not expecting it that moment. But I think from the entrepreneur in me was like, holy crap, I created enough value that someone wants to pay for it.
Yes.
And so that was just like, that's what why it was just such a big moment, I would say, as entrepreneurs, like, wait a minute, someone wants to buy this? Okay.
How tempted were you?
For sure tempted, for sure. But it was also like, we're so early, you know what I mean? And like, there's so much more we want to do. And, when we had taken on a little bit of investment at that point, so I was like, no, I want to get a good, get this closer to where we really see it going. So obviously we're still independent, so we didn't end up going down that path. It was like a fascinating moment as an entrepreneur and really interesting experience.
How many times do you get a reach out, like an offer, or even just like a passing by of like, hey, so are you looking to sell?
Oh boy, at least every year.
At least every year. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Affirming. That's an affirming thing. That's incredible. That's super cool. Heather, I want to end with this. I so appreciate your time. I want to just, first off, I just want to encourage you. You have so much to offer in your personal brand and in your content that I want to challenge you to do something about it. And I want to encourage you and tell you that there's people that would resonate with your story. They just need to hear it. So, can you just promise me that you're going to spend more time telling your story in the next year? That you're gonna dedicate a little bit just to help other people hear where you come from and what you've accomplished. Can you just please just promise me that much, so that, because I want to make sure that when I point people to you, that they go somewhere and they find something.
Yes, absolutely. And if
Cool.
anyone wants any content in particular, has ideas, please shoot me a DM. Would love.
Cool. And she's shoppable is not available for purchase at this moment for any of those, or yeah. So let her continue to build it. What's one tip that you'd give for someone that is on the journey but looking to quit? So they've been doing that entrepreneurial endeavor for about 2 to 3 years, and there's both a light at the end of the tunnel, and then the next day they feel hopeless. What encouragement would you give to them, that just to tell them to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 2 things. One, we all have tough days. Every single entrepreneur does. It's a lot of highs and lows. But what I've always told myself is, I have a bad day, I'm like, you get one day to like feel it and complain or be in your, blame, whatever you want to do in your head, but you get one day and then you move on. You can't dwell in it. You move on, and you never know. And there's this great graphic, and I wish we could put it up on the screen, but there's this great graphic of someone digging for diamonds. And you never know that diamond, like if you quit, that diamond is right on the other side. If you had just dug a little bit more, like you're so close to hitting everything. And that, even though as of that day, you might feel like you have nothing, but just around the corner are those diamonds, is exactly what you're trying to put together, exactly where you're going. So definitely encourage people to keep going and don't give up. You have your conviction, your idea for a reason, and keep going with it.
Awesome. Well, you heard her, everybody. Have that encouragement. Heather, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.